The great spiritual teacher Yoda reminds us, do or do not. There is no try. Lord, teach us to do, as Mary once did. Lord, let us be spilled out, poured out, used up, only, ever, always, for thee. Amen. Amen. Things are seldom what they seem. Skim milk masquerades as cream. High-lows pass as patent leathers. Jackdaws strut in peacock feathers. Very true, so they do. You know, when it comes to Jesus, things are seldom what they seem. Most especially in John's Gospel. For John requires we put on spiritual bifocals so we can view what is happening in two directions, both at the surface and discern what lies beneath. Today, we're invited to a dinner party just outside Jerusalem, 3 miles away in Bethany. Now, on the surface, Bethany seems to be just a pit stop for food and sleep for Jesus and his disciples, but what lies beneath is so much more deep. Observe the patterning in the scriptures. Bethany is a place where Jesus goes to feed his soul. Jesus was always ministering to, caring for, serving others, but at the home of Lazarus, Martha, and Mary, roles reversed. It was a place where Jesus could just sit, relax, do nothing, be himself, while others did the work. Others cooked and cared and catered and served. Vladimir Nabokov wrote, "Smells are surer than sights or sounds to make your heartstrings crack." We all of us know what it's like to go somewhere, pass through a doorframe, take a deep breath. How the smells of a place fill us with grace, enable us to do our happy dance. Certainly, the stew outside Martha's house, cooking in a pot in her front courtyard, must have hit Jesus like a brick thick in the air, reminding him all he had to do was relax, eat, retreat. Of course, rest was fine for Jesus as honored guest, but Luke's gospel explains another dinner story, how Martha expected more from her sister. Remember? Chose to publicly embarrass her. Jesus, make her help, force her to get up and serve with me. largely forgotten a saying in circulation during that time for at least 100 years back. The words of Yosef ben Yozer, "Let your house be a meeting place for the rabbis. Cover yourself in the dust of their feet and drink in their words thirstily." Martha had forgotten when a gifted rabbi came to your house, protocol directed, you stop, drop, and sit at the rabbi's feet. It's no wonder then Jesus said, "Let Mary be. She's with me." Friends, I do believe there's a reason this first dinner story stares down at us every week in stained glass imagery. How often are we too much like Mary, trying to remain in control, flitting, fussing, focusing on unimportant things, trying to control others rather than turn in and first examine ourselves? Can we be just a little more like Mary? Can we spend just a bit more prime time at Jesus' feet? Soren Kierkegaard preached, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." To understand what's going on in John, go backwards. Put today's dinner party in context. John tells us the family gave a dinner party for Jesus. Why? To honor what? Why? Well, he was the guy who just brought Lazarus back from the dead 1 chapter ago. Mary and Martha sent Jesus a message, "Lord, the one you love is ill." But when Jesus finally rolled into town, Lazarus was DOA, dead on arrival. So both sisters individually confronted Jesus, and they even said the exact same words to start their conversations, yet how they chose to go about connecting with Jesus through those words completely differed. Martha said from the head, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." And then Martha intellectually framed her beliefs out to Jesus. "I know God will do anything for you. I know my brother will be raised to life on the last day. I know you are the Christ." But when the chips were down, when Jesus said, "Take me to the tomb, roll the stone away," Martha was still stuck in her head. Hear what she said in the King James Version, the best translation ever for this verse. "Lord, by this time he stinketh, for he hath been dead 4 days." Now, this does not sound like someone who actually believed Jesus could do anything. But when Mary approached Jesus, she said from the heart, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." And then she did only 2 things. She dropped to her knees she wept. Mary did what she needed to do by just zipping her lips. Silence and tears was all she offered. Friends, I tell you, Mary images the truest truth for, in the worst of times, all we can do is kneel at God's feet and weep. Kneeling, weeping, keeping close proximity to Jesus went deep into his spiritual well, for once Mary fell on her knees. And only after Mary fell and wept, John says all of a sudden, Jesus became greatly disturbed, deeply moved, started taking action, said, "Where have you laid him?" Went to the tomb. Let a dead man go walking. So Mary did the biggest part simply by baring her heart. And that act of deference, of preference to Jesus, that was entirely, completely enough. So yesterday I read today's gospel to my 8-year-old. She immediately observed, Mary poured out oil on Jesus' feet, then used her hair to take it off. That is just weird. I replied, "Why do you think she did it?" And immediately Fiona said, "Duh, because she loved him." And then I asked, do people sometimes do weird things for love's sake? And she replied, "Sometimes, but not enough." You know, on the surface, it all seems so weird. Mary pouring a year's salary on Jesus' feet. Judas saying we could have sold that oil, fed the poor. Jesus, who loved the poor, saying, "Judas, back off." Mary did the right thing. Remember, with Jesus, things are seldom what they seem. Look beneath. John made it clear. Once Lazarus came back from the dead, the Pharisees and Sadducees put a price on Jesus' head. They set in motion a plan to kill Jesus and all. His friends knew this. This was really the first of 2 Last Suppers. And Mary knew that. So Mary stepped up by stooping down, by busting out a year's salary of oil on a man and binding her hair, using it as a towel, touching a single rabbi tenderly and publicly. Take note, Mary was the prophet who did the first sacramental foot washing. Jesus was the second. So in this extravagant act of love, she said, "I kneel at the feet of my Messiah, and I anoint him as all kings should be anointed, with oil that stinketh. I kneel at the feet of a man who will be murdered, so I will do as all Jewish women must do for their dead. I will begin to embalm his body. And I will use so much oil that aroma reeks all the way to the cross. And from the cross, his kingship scent will never fade. All will smell what I refuse to sell. And I will design my life not by how little love I give to some, but how much love I pledge to him. New Testament scholar Gail O'Day writes, Mary gives boldly of herself in love to Jesus at his hour, just as Jesus will give boldly of himself in love at another hour. Every hour we have the power to give boldly of ourselves in love. So how can we step up by stooping down? How will we kneel before Jesus? How can we prodigally, lavishly waste our lives on him? Lord, please let these my people be found in their ways and days as truly odd. May we give recklessly,